Oba Ewuare II is about now to address a world press conference on the controversy surrounding the return of certain artifacts. And let's take you live. Again, you're watching live visuals from the palace of the Oba of Benin, Oba Ewuare II, Omo Noba Nedo Ukwa. And this, I must say, is unusual, Ekene, for the revered Oba to be addressing a world conference such as this. It's not something we see all the time. It's truly historic. The last time we saw Oba Ewuare II come to public glare, he was intervening in the political crisis in Edo State ahead of the last elections between, once upon a time, Godfather Comrade Adams Oshomole, and once upon a time, godson and incumbent Governor Godwin Obaseki.
And then did he do a public address? Because I was going to say this seems a bit out of the ordinary to have a public address, a public press conference.
Indeed, well, at that time, he had a closed-door session with them and, of course, addressed them before the press. To be honest, belittling them, spoke to them in a way, addressing them to say, you
get your act together.
Get your act together. You're from the same political party at that time before the defection of Governor Obaseki to the PDP.
Well, I mean, you would say that this particular situation warrants this. Judging from the comments we got from I think he's the chief secretary, who was with Christian Ogodo at the time, it would seem that he's coming to lay the gauntlet down. We're hoping he will be open to some kind of negotiation, but he's basically saying, this is my property, it belongs to me, it's not open to any debate. That would seem to be the angle they're pushing.
Indeed, well, maybe the word's not belittling, but scolding them. At that time he was reprimanding them. The artifacts that are meant to be returned, history to that as well. It was stolen by the British people during that invasion. And of course, some people will say, indeed, massacre, because Benin Kingdom was burnt. It's a very interesting story behind it. Apparently, they were there to see the then king, the then Oba of Ewuare, Nogbaise. And he couldn't see the British entourage. And of course, they took offense to that. Some history books to say they took offense to that. That entourage was never seen again. And of course, the British did not take that lightly. And of course, that invasion happened. The rest, they say, is history. But there's also history between these two men that are involved in this brewing controversy, should we say. They are both great-grandchildren of one-time best friends. Yes, their great-great-grandfathers were best friends.
Oh, wow. So this would be interesting to see if they will somehow come together once again and build. Because what is intriguing about this particular case is that they both seem to want the same thing, which is to preserve these artifacts now that it's been accepted that they will be returned. Preserve them in the best way for the posterity of Edo State. And for Nigeria, really, we must say, because this is something that we look forward to seeing more of this. Maybe this will be the first of many. So we hope this can be resolved amicably. I think the Oba has a strong case, just to throw my own opinion in there. But perhaps what he's looking for is that acknowledgement, and then collaboration can go beyond that.
Not to preempt the Oba, but we've heard, the undercurrent of what is likely to be the issue here is custody of this returned looted artifact. It's also about accountability, some would tell you, because museums are complex organizations to run, like I keep saying. They are maintained on behalf of public trust, reliant on funding and support to thrive. But we know that the museums we have in Nigeria at the moment, they lack accountability. Internal structures do not exist, and of course financial mismanagement and ethical breaches. So both parties perhaps do have strong arguments.
Yes.
Some will say the Oba, who is the custodian of tradition and culture, should have custody. After all, they were taken from the palace.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the controversy is that the governor, Godwin Obaseki, has allegedly floated a private trust to handle these artifacts. And what will that do? That simply means the property, which is the museum or the artifacts in this case, will be vested in persons known as trustees for the benefit of the public, generation unborn.
Okay.
And of course, there will be better funding.
But then
the artifacts are better kept.
Yes, but I heard you then, mulling over the possibility that you could have a joint trust, private and public, whether the Oba would then be given the custody of these artifacts, which is his anyway, but allow for Godwin Obaseki to then assist him in terms of looking after these artifacts under a trust. So I imagine this can have a very good resolution and can set a precedent going forward. It just depends on how it's handled.
Indeed, and there are many examples of private trusts handling museums across the world, in the United States, in the United Kingdom. Some will even say even here in Nigeria, the Muson Center, Terraculture, beg your pardon, and even the Muson Center, and that's why you have different organizations owning different halls. So how does this work? There's a board of trustees who, of course, ensure that the finances put into that trust is used for the purpose it is set for. Okay. In this instance,
so
to ensure there should be accountability, and that's the essence of it. How do you ensure that everyone is on board? That is why the governor, should he go ahead with this alleged private trust, must ensure that the interest of the royal family, of course, is put into account. Yeah. And that means that the royal family has to be given, has to be brought on board when it comes to that private trust. Yes. So some would say it's a win-win for everyone. Yes. It just has to be that meeting ground, that middle point. Yes. But let's wait and see to hear what the Oba has to say. I think that we can now go live to the palace.
Are we okay? Members of the Fourth State of the Realm, for your information and record dissemination, the group that just came out of Majesty are known as Okaili. They are representatives of the Jews in Benin. We have a lot of them outside. Because of space, so these are those that are representatives. So it is better for us to know who this group of people are.
Well, right at the audience hall, the Palace of His Royal Majesty, the Oba of Benin, Okwa Bolokbolo, Oba Eware II, where the chiefs, traditional rulers, enogies, members of the royal family from over 10 generations have been paying homage to His Royal Majesty, the Oba of Benin. These are some of the courtesies to His Royal Majesty, the Oba of Benin. Okay, we're about to take the Edo National Anthem, where everybody is expected to rise. That's the Benin national anthem you've just heard, or the Benin anthem, which of course has some praises, eulogization of His Royal Majesty as well.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are all here on the directive of His Royal Majesty of Monoba Nedokwa Kolokolo, the great Oba of the great Benin Kingdom. I would like to implore all of us to please put our phones on silence, to be very attentive and receptive to whatever reason that we are gathered here today for the instruction of Majesty, which will be coming from the throne.
Well, the Royal Majesty, the Oba of Benin, is going to address the chiefs, traditional rulers, royal family members, the Eniges, in Edo language over the issue of the repatriation of Benin artifacts that were plundered during the invasion of Benin Kingdom in 1897. While His Royal Majesty the Oba of Benin is opening his speech with some prayers to God and our ancestors, and he welcomes everybody for honoring the invitation. About talk by and His Royal Majesty again, like the statesman that he is greeted.
Thank your respective bosses. Namely, I think Professor Wasunai. Bruce, who is also here. The Prince Nduka Babila is also here. Well, I thank all of you. I thank your bosses. John Momo, yes, John Momo. I thank all of you. I thank you for your concern. I thank all of you for the concern you have expressed about the matter you are here for today. And others too numerous to mention. I'm speaking in English, so for the benefit of those of you who do not understand English. I'm going to address my chiefs first in Benin language. After which there's a statement that we read in English for the benefit of those who do not understand our language.
You're watching live visuals from Benin City, the Edo State capital. Oba Eware II addressing his kinsmen in his language there. there are reports of brewing controversies over the to be returned looted artifacts from the kingdom. Reports suggest that the monarch would prefer the artifacts to return to where they were stolen, his palace.
Yes.
At that time, it was his great-great-grandfather ruling Benin Kingdom.
Yes, and his argument would be that the artifacts belonged to his great-grandfather, and so if something is stolen, then it should be returned. As his secretary stated emphatically, it should come back to the original owner. We would love to hear his final statement on the matter and maybe look forward to hearing if he's open to some kind of collaboration as regards his custody. The custody would be his, but as regards the care of the artifacts and how the artifacts are to be maintained and looked after and in what building. So these are maybe issues that will unfold in the days to come, but perhaps based on what he says here, we will know how likely such a collaboration will be going forward.
Although the Oba is speaking to his kinsmen in his language at the moment, he's promised to address the press and, of course, the world in English when he's about done with his kinsmen.
One takeaway from this, Adeswa, is that at least the world and Nigerians will remember again how valuable art and artifacts are to us, and perhaps we can go back to the origins of these artifacts and begin to reevaluate, our own estimation of artifacts to begin with, because some have said that the neglect of some of our museums to date perhaps seem to speak to our lack of appreciation of the things that others seem to value more than ourselves, such that they have held on to it for so long. But perhaps this debate that's going on will remind us once again that artifacts have an intrinsic value as regards our identity, as regards our past history. So perhaps those conversations will be reawakened again. Okay, let's go back to listening on the procedures and the conversation that's been had by the Oba.
Ya dado na area ya na ya ni tu ne ka so ne ba ni ma ero wa ya ni bo ya no ki awon to ya ma mi gbo ede ya na la na gya arriba ano ma me ye ọgbà hàn òfú èèyàn nẹ wàá èrè ní social media àríyé náà ọ̀nà àwọn nẹ ẹ̀yà chief dọ̀pẹ́ sí wọn jọ mọ́mọ́ hàn ẹ̀rọ̀bọ̀ ó ní kéwà fóònù wàá dé náà wọ́n mà yẹn àti ìwé náà yé náà yẹn àti àbí ìwé náà yé náà.
Okay, so as we continue to listen to Oba Iware's comments regarding the situation and hopefully get his own perspective on things and wait for the translation on his statements, we look forward to seeing an amicable resolution to this matter at Adeswa.
Indeed, the Oba there speaking Benin language to his kinsmen, updating them on his views on what seems to be a controversial subject at the moment, the custody of returned looted artifacts to Benin. Ekene, you were talking about how priceless artifacts are and how they are fragments of our history. So this is a very important conversation to have. There's also the bigger challenge here. Some governments, where these artifacts are at the moment, give conditions to countries before they are released. We've also seen where others have decided to take legal matters. For instance, in Thailand, they've had to go to court to get some of their artifacts from around the world. And as a result, you see countries deciding to take the step to say, we would return your stolen artifacts to you, even though some have refused to recognize them as those that they were stolen brazenly from these countries.
Yes, and it's interesting to note that the discussions or the parley around the restitution of these artifacts has been going on for some time. And I think it was stated earlier that I think during this parley that Governor Obaseki says as a government, they want to retrieve these artifacts. He's been at the forefront of trying to recover these artifacts because he says that they're evidence of the identity of the Edo people. And in his own words, he says, culture is a living thing. The artifacts as we are dealing with today are a repetition of our culture at a certain point in time. So this is maybe where, even though we're discussing who would take, whose rightful custody these artifacts should belong to, it's a joyful thing that we've reached the point where we're actually discussing the retrieval of these artifacts in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, I can also recall that it comes at a time where nations grapple with histories of racial injustice. We have seen increasingly protest movement toppling statues and a call for recovery of stolen items during colonial rule. Again, this is a very important conversation to have. We are yet to hear the federal government comment on this, although at the moment we do know that the Governor Godwin Obaseki, and the Minister of Information and Culture, La Mohammed, are presently in Germany.
Oh, good.
Having conversations about, returning these artifacts.
Yes, and some of what has been said, at least that's been documented, is that that they believe the collaboration should transcend not just to returning the works, but also to understanding the significance and meaning of those works from our history. So clearly there's more to just who will take ownership of these artifacts, but also in educating the generations to come about a part of their history that they may have lost out on due to the absence of these artifacts on home soil.
It also speaks to the condition of our existing museums. Where do we keep these priceless treasures, these cultural treasures? How would they be kept? How have they been kept? The ones we have, how well have we kept them? And so conversations around that as well. There's the debate for conditionality to say these countries cannot preserve this artifact. Talking about the countries of host at the moment, saying we have kept these artifacts better. We only want to return them back to you on loan. There are several conditions depending on the country you're looking at, because we feel like we have kept them better because of how the materials they're made out of. So again, it calls the question: what museums do we have? What's the quality? How efficient are they? Are we, having that conversation? How important truly are these to us? Is it just about having the artifacts back? What do we do with them when they are back?
Yes, I know some have been very passionate about arguing from the other perspective to say, well, they're ours. Let us have that conversation. We won't have you who stole them from us.
Tell us how to.
But having said that, there's a statement here that I'm looking at, Dr. Andreas Gorgen, who from Germany, the German side, who pledged to collaborate with, the Edo state government and the monarchy to organize joint skills program and explore archaeological sites and ensure the retrieval of objects. So they're looking ahead to some sort of a cross-border collaboration to preserving these artifacts and also to building up some kind of value system among those who will be in contact with these artifacts to appreciate what we have. It's ironic, really, because Shaitan did a piece on museums recently, and it was ironic to note that the person who was managing a certain museum was a foreign, well, you could say resident, and he seemed to be able to tell us more about our own history and our artifacts than maybe some of us would have known without his maybe taking that interest.
Igwe mo osi na ya yama so mi have your bani na ya zire na sa yama no sunu ya bio pa na I do mi ni awe oyi no orin ado awe odo apopun ya ni akere we emi oyi eyan adodo orin ariyan ni awe ni avio weregbe so pon babana ke yin babana ke gun agun ope eso gbana me yi re bi gun agun aderio we enana no yi pin no yi ni ado agbegbe no do ki e wa do ge na e ma ti fasi na e na mi wa ma mi gbo ede ana wa ka we ya ka murine obia British ga no ya na muri wa ya e na yo ba ya wa 1938 ake vieux with the kiri no read the dia se wa na we na mu with the gbe no read dia ni yesige ya woni ya we money gbe so ma
Well, joining us in the studio is the Rice business analyst, Rotus Odiri. Rotus, Eken and I have just been having a conversation of how significant this is for not just the Benin people or Edo people, but Nigeria in general. Return of artifacts, Rotus Odiri. Your take?
Okay. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. What's really stands out. Everyone's got to read the front page, the article in today's This Day. Essentially, with Governor Obaseki wanting to have the trust, put these items in a trust, and the Benin monarch saying no. It needs to come back to the origins where the Europeans looted these items from. 1,310, I believe, of these artifacts. And so the monarch, I believe, they've got a point. If you know, I can imagine. It's Boris Johnson's the prime minister, but imagine the mayor of London trying to argue with the Queen about artifacts that were looted from the Buckingham Palace. Where would they go? Would you want to put them in a trust elsewhere or return them back to the origin? So it's a very in-depth article here that really touches on all the points. I understand Lai Mohammed was in Berlin yesterday to speak with German officials about making sure that they get them back. So. It should go back to the palace.
It's a matter of national interest.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
I would like to think, but I look forward to seeing how this situation evolves. I would like to think it's just a matter of presumption and maybe procedural issues rather than denying the fact that the artifacts truly belong to the monarch, because I think that should be a clear enough point to make. So maybe the preoccupation now is when the artifacts come back, how can they be preserved and looked after? You know, in what way can we have a collaborative effort at ensuring that they're well preserved in a way that ensures the posterity of the particular history they document?
And they should be monetized. I mean, that's my angle. They have to be monetized. As in tourist visits, as in everyone gets to see them. They definitely. So I think that's, and if you check out the This Day piece on this particular matter, these artifacts, if you think about the exchange rates and what they will be valued. In fact, I understand, according to the article, that the German government is going to make a 4.5 million euro donation to the Edo Museum of West African Arts and Culture projects to be built in Benin City. So I think that's part of that's where the motivation for the governor is coming from with respect to trying to get that private trust put in place. So the value, I think, is what's causing this this back and forth. But again, considering, what's the word? Is it conservatorship? Considering the origins of where they were taken from, I think the monarchs got
Winning argument.
the monarchs got the argument. But I guess Obaseki is trying to wheel and deal with respect to getting that private trust set up.
And, you know, what we're talking about, the value that these artifacts will bring, because these countries where they are on display in public museums. They're generating monies for the governments where they are. And that's why some people have said, you know, the bigger fight here is not just only to have the artifacts back, but to even take that step forward to sue these governments, because you made money from the artifacts. Okay. How about you pay us for the damage, even though the compensation can never be enough? This is history being stolen. This is tradition, culture. You took away from the people forcefully. So there'll be no amount of compensation. However, we do know that you've made monies from these artifacts. Pay us for it.
Yes.
Well, I think that's where the 4.5 million euro donation is coming in. It's like, look at what
doing a preemptive strike.
Right. And plus, I think Nigeria's ambassador to Germany, Mr. Yusuf Tugler, said this issue of repatriation between both countries is an opportunity to take the cooperation between Nigeria and Germany to a greater heights. Okay. Lai Mohammed talked about that. So they're trying to make sure that this is sorted out on an amicable base. And of course, I think, you know, hey, 4.5 euros, that's in the billions. Okay, so, and that will go a long way in getting this this project that Obaseki plans to get off the ground together. So yeah, so I think they do want to make sure that this is done on an amicable basis, that everybody's friendly and so on and so forth. So, you know, suing the German government, I don't think would play out well, because it looks like the talks that are taking place
have gone beyond that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not just Germany.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
France
scattered all over the world.
UK, yep.
But we have seen countries who have done it. We've seen Thailand, and successfully, Thailand has had to go the legal route and then had some of the artifacts back and getting reparations for it.
Indeed. Well, again, with the high-level talks that are taking place right now, I think it's.
We just want the artifacts back.
Exactly. And the 4.5.
Let's have the artifacts back.
And the 4.5 million euros in order to, you know, for the projects to get off the ground. So yeah, that I think will go a long way.
And I wonder how much of an incentive or a disincentive, depending, those watching who are still holding on to our artifacts around the world, Britain, watching this particular, how it plays out, whether it will motivate them to say, we'll follow suit, we'll do the same as Germany has done, and we will take the initiative to say, here are your artifacts back, plus the donation.
Excellent point. That should open the door. In fact, since Lai Mohammed is in Europe right now, you should actually take this opportunity to actually engage other countries.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the finest you would ever see. The Benin tradition, the Benin culture on display. Yes. The Oba of Benin, Oba Eware II, is dancing.
Yes. And yes.
Nollywood needs to jump on this matter. And who wouldn't want to watch a 2-hour movie or an hour and a half film based on what's taking place here, and from the 19th century up until now, getting these artifacts back? There's a whole lot of history here that should be on screen, and again should be promoting Nigerian culture around the world with respect to what's been going on. It's lovely to take in.
Yeah, and again, it's a reminder that actually this is a cause for celebration. I know we're talking about the disputes more than we're actually maybe acknowledging the fact that this is a landmark event, that the artifacts are coming home, you know, not just football that's coming home now. The artifacts are making their way to home soil, finally, after so many years.
And the money.
As a business.
And the money man.
Yeah, bring the money, because, yeah, exactly. That is one nice looking palace, I have to say, where he is.
Yes, I would trade places with Christian Ogudu at this point in time.
A gorgeous looking hall where we've got everyone there. Okay, so he's still, of course, speaking in the native tongue, but I do hope that things move quickly from this point on, because, you know, you've gotten the royal family involved, you've gotten high-level government officials involved. This has reached the highest levels of government, Minister of Information and Culture involving the Europeans. So at this point, you know, Yeah, we've got to see some progress within the next few days.
hours even.
Yeah, right. So we should. We definitely should. And tourism. Earlier, I was talking with Bode Oshoshimi about with the UK opening up, reducing travel curbs from the amber list cities and so on and so forth. Travel bookings spiking, right?
Yeah.
Nigeria, when you think about all the economic touch points and metrics that can be used to boost FX, foreign exchange, this is what you're watching now. I mean, look, who wouldn't want to tour the Oba's Palace and pay a entry fee to look around? I mean, look at his throne.
Yes.
I call it a throne. Look at where,
it's a throne.
It is. I mean, look at that. It's any foreigner would pay money to come in here and take and look around. So with the artifacts coming in, there's a tourism angle to this and foreign exchange boost to some level.
Your brain is just doing the arithmetic.
Oh yeah, I mean it's huge, So
I mean, a lot of people have said that because of the state of insecurity, that somehow tourism shouldn't be on the menu. But I beg to differ. I think if tourism is pushed to the fore, it might just drive back all the distractions because the very same people, the youths they say are being used to fuel insecurity, you could divert their energies to being part of that tourist market.
Excellent point. The tourism dollars this is the opportunity of what it is that you're losing right now should be an incentive to depress insecurity, so you can get more people. This is summer. This is July. People are traveling. Yeah, Kenya is looking for the Masai Mara, the wildlife there. Kenya is looking forward to an influx of Europeans and Americans coming in to come and take travel tours there. So we definitely want to take advantage. Hey, you just said business just now. Did you hear him? I just heard him say business and companies. I think
it's reading your mind. Yes, and it's interesting because recently Leila Johnson Salami was making the point about
the wildlife special report.
Yes, and saying that it actually makes business sense to instead of conducting illegal trade, why don't we legitimize it? We would actually make much more money from that side than what we're making from illegal trading. You just need to educate people because the fallout of going down the road of, like you were saying, maybe creating some sort of reserve where people can come and view this, the employment fallout, all these have a build-up that is far more significant than what people will make from illegal trading.
Oh yes.
Roger, you're talking about touring the Oba's Palace. Well, I don't know about that because there's a sanctity to this palace. It's not open to the entire public. But I do understand the richness of the Benin culture.
Yes.
The irony of all of this is that the Europeans thought that we were barbaric and worshipping idols, yet they stole the artifact.
Well, it was in the 19th century, so that was quite a long time ago, and the perception of Africa at that time were, of course, very backward with the way they viewed us. So, of course, like you said, they viewed us in a backward manner, but it wasn't backward to steal our values, right? So that, of course, that definitely has changed. I do like the level of engagement with Germany, though, on a diplomatic level, and so that tells you how far things have come and where things are going. So again, I really, really hope that this. You see, saying it now, I kind of now see the argument that Governor Obaseki is pushing with the trust and all that to put the article. I see that, but again, it's the monarch. The prevailing argument is with the royal family.
Yes.
That's where the prevailing argument is, and I still think that that's where you can still, despite the private sector participation and what can be gleaned from the artifacts being on display, still the monarch still has the powerful argument here.
And who's to say the monarch may not resort to establishing a trust himself? If you speak to him in a way that makes sense, he may say, "Well, I'll set up a trust."
As the owner of the returned artifact.
Yes.
Exactly.
Stolen artifacts.
Yes.
Again, if you've just joined us, you're watching live broadcast from the palace of the Oba of Benin, Oba Eware II, Omonoba Nedo Ukwa. He is addressing his kinsmen in the Benin language. anytime from now, any moment from now, he promises to also address the world in English. We're waiting for that to happen, but we do understand this has been called regarding the proposed return of the looted artifacts from the kingdom many years ago.
Nobody is perfect. So
What he just said, nobody is perfect.
You can assume.
Would you be generous enough to apply that to the Europeans when they took the artifact? That no one's perfect. You made a mistake, and we understand. Just bring them back. Just bring them back. No one's perfect. You stole possibly billions of worth of artifacts from us. No one's perfect, but just bring them back.
It's just the problem that this particular imperfection had significant costly ramifications. So you still want to add on, okay, bring them back plus.
Exactly.
The bed of prophecy.
Oh, okay.
Mark Walker. Walker was one of the British officers that came in 1897. Great grandson of Nahina. On our way, I can't return because a big man here again. I am not returning. You are not returning. I just go. But they get one. I go present Nana. Odiboba Menare wa the Bible. Ana avio ene omonoba Mark Walker. The bed and the bed.
Hey Frankie, when Diana nani mumida we na we sikenya.
Okay, I should hold it. Okay.
We lewa we buya wani.
Okay, I should stay. Okay. Mark Walker presenting the broadcast of the bed of prophecy and the bell to the Oba of Benin, Oba Erediawa, 2012-2013, very recent. 2013, to be very precise. We were all witness to it. It was not taken to anywhere else.
Oni said no one to mwe mayage. Abi bioba ni maka ni mare wa ni abi miege ya miono na nia. Nene wa rewa. Wa ya ga rewa. Nene wetamia ni awe nene numu foto e maya e wa muladiana mwesike ya wodo. No ye mulare yotani ye dai we atite lutale le kian.
Anya mo oni no re picture ba na mo ajegwa e wa na hina e gogo no ro e na hi wa jere we de ni umugu na we na wege ana wa e do ga je de ya ku ana mo we ama bi ari yo we This was the broadcast that was returned by Mark Walker in 2013.
When that no one in Frank. When that no one na.
When that Waya mienya. Ebro kwa mawe. Yobe yero no this. You know service oye. Oma deteriorate.
Ba mo ni ati o do Frankie. Ya ka ma e.
Mo da we jam. Okay.
Na ta ma no.
Stand there.
Mwego tos ni abeni agese.
What video?
We no mwego. Ni ameke na.
What video? And the bell of prophecy, and the bell. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Madam Yagwai.
I think what we've just witnessed was a display of buttressing the point of the monarchy here, saying that we can keep these artifacts when returned. We know how to keep them because they're ours. What was on display was the bird of prophecy returned by Mark Walker, who interestingly was the grandson of a Walker who had been part of the invasion in Benin City. He also returned in 2013 the bell, like I said, the bell of prophecy, and of course and other items there to the Benin Kingdom.
So he's building his argument.
And there was a gourd or a picture of that to displaying that, but displaying him, it was the gentleman in the suit and the glasses in that photograph, which was displayed around the hall there, to everyone to see that, yes, you know, this is what was returned. Gorgeous pieces, though, yeah? The bell and the
bed of prophecy.
And the bell and the bird, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I'm thinking of a movie. The Bird of Prophecy, a history of, you know, the Bird of Prophecy, the return, if you will. He's got so many artifacts surrounding him. Even to his left, you'll see a mini statue there. If the camera pan, there it is. Look at there. See that's like a town crier in front of the flag, and then there's two more artifacts behind that crier again. It's just rich with history and artifacts in that palace, and we're just seeing just two items sitting next to him as he speaks. That's again the Oba. So much more. That's inventory right there for the palace.
Anyway, Yadi can I give it now? The cardio band no one give Mayana. Now, Nigeria yo. Now I'm where now I sa na viva ekme noa na viva na sa imopage obanore Sweden imopage obanore Norway, King of Sweden, King of Norway, Queen of Denmark. The way so my Finland, yeah, Obariwa, we not body in our own here, and I don't see you. So, I have one in a base, and I have a guiagua. I have a kimakba, and I have a Okario Baby, the Jawa, here, you can you. Na bacha na aro nebo na ebo igwe Nigeria gwa yana mu Nigeria buru wa yana mu Nigeria buru ya kwene wa supa ina do gi ba na ya dole emi Nigeria yi ma emi Nigeria polose na do na ari ewo da agwa you know na here o ma pe Abacha ni no mo afi eme no we gi ma ya na ya gun edole ya yi wa we pa ai ke wa pa ana ri ewe Africa ni ati Angola oge no concern no kan ati na ma bo de fiowa so ma we ke wa ya na gbe we gi me again oge ha igba ha si Rome na be agun ba ana be do agun ana deputy campaign ana campaign ye ina be campaign ye me mot bini mot ai kini yare ebi a ni bun fi we de kan normal e do mayo ana ene we okari oba ni mata o we na u we c'est bien sobre no abe museum yo da we gwai Benin Royal Museum wa we mata o ke na ta we even mata here where the truth shall set you free any as a time emma na we emma ina ta ina we give ni ri mata eti wa eti ri bogbera ni counter me eti ri bogbera ni counter ama ewuwa menenika owi apamu na iri obogbera ni nika otai ike we ike zowe ke wona ike gun ika nirunge nika one ara ebe wo na ebe dugi na ebe ike na abi abi pon nika ina we na o wa ri gbe bae ere ni o ya wa gbon wa ri gbe bae ne si etan gbe ya okikiri me ado ahimi obi we okari oba ebo na aze collaborate with the palace we am we nani ana wa collaborate with the palace me na ahe ni me no collaboration na kina but imami ro kwa udunri me wa hon àwọn amoto pa gbo ní àti legacy restoration trust ri wa ya won ina wọ́n na fún mi udunri àwọn kan wa ebe museum o we udunri wa kan wa we collaborate with egba udunri me wa mo na gbo me de na collaborate with egba we yi why we na ya collaborate with egba we collaborate with egba collaborate me na ke ne okari ba no we gbe do tai na do sun we yan ri election we ya fo na do sun na igbe atai emi o we me ga hon e ba ta no ro eta na unde ni won na we ma egun agun o ke ni gun agun na we eri ono ina we why we na we ambassador ni ya be mama e so uwe aka like di agbalutona e ma na agugwa na ya diami na ya dole mi yi awe ka bo hia na ya dole mi is it meze hia amazeyo wani yo nikawe amazeyo ena we oke na ge ni mwa do ahụ we edi ma wa hunwa gemini ahụ adi ahụ ya collaborate with egwa wa ge mo bowo ina e won bowo
You're still watching live broadcast from Benin City, capital of Edo State, to be precise, the palace of the Oba Eware II, Omo Noba Nedo Kwapolopolo. He's been addressing issues. Roches and Ekene looking at me waiting for that translation. I am not Benin. But
bring the artifacts back. That's the translation. Bring them back to the palace.
That's the only translation that matters at this point. Bring the artifacts back. And you know, he, from the little I was able to pick, he was talking about why is there so much emphasis on collaboration when some of these artifacts, because artifacts have actually been returned previously.
Yes.
We even heard the secretary to the palace say twice now. However, the last one was in 2013 by Mr. Walker, who returned the bird of prophecy and, of course, the bell, which was on display moments ago. Although at that time it was his father before he went to join his ancestors, Oba Erejoa,
the second
at that time, who received Mr. Walker and collected those artifacts. Of course, we also saw evidence of that. There was a picture of Mr. Walker handing those artifacts back to them. So he's saying, why is everybody suddenly talking about, why is there to talk about collaborating with the palace?
What's new about
There's nothing new. Just return the artifacts to where they were stolen from. Exactly.
Me back my stuff. Just
put it simply, give it back to me, it belongs to me.
Yes,
and I can take care of that. That's also very important, because that was the emphasis of that display, to say we can take care of them.
Yes.
And I did think that the artifact looked, you know, as
good
new,
condition.
very great conditions, you know, but they're centuries old.
Yes, indeed.
Fascinating.
And like you say, Oba Eredua was the second, was the 39th Oba of Benin, and he died in 2016 after ruling for 37 years. You know, again, it would be curious to know how many artifacts have been returned over the years, because the argument may still be that returning a few artifacts is not the same as 1,000 and Rotus was
1,310.
So it would be good to know how many artifacts have been returned over the years, and if, you know, that poses a challenge for the Oba to maintain all these artifacts.
Exactly. Does anyone wonder what breed of bird the bird of prophecy
like
is modeled after? The beak is really large, so it looks like, I don't know, I was looking it up, it looks like a toucan, a toko toucan.
But the wings reminded me of an eagle's.
The eagles, yeah? Which ties back to Leila Johnson Salami's special on endangered species. Remember, what did Leila say? Ekpe is supposed to be a land of water buffaloes or something, which are no longer in that area. So who knows? That bird of prophecy could be an extinct. Exactly.
Fascinating.
Based on what birds are available in here in Benin or Edo, or what was Edo State back in the 19th century. I can't get over his throne. That is a lovely looking throne.
You know, here sene akabo wa here imani boom we mani boom waro ni hiegbe yo meni a oni a ibude iyo ni agwe ariobaze ma so ni agwe ariobaze o no ma keke no ni pena ena weta nirune okarioba no ebanwe then one any my make na nirune nemi make na mane sayo. So wani I na mwero for. So ma aye dogu wa ya gwane ni wa ya ho ogba no rema no ma nerema wa no ho tame no ma ho. I don't know. For the benefit of those that didn't understand our language, I have a written statement in English, which have mandated the Iyase of Benin Kingdom to read out on my behalf. I don't understand Benin and in diaspora everywhere. So there's a short statement, but I've explained a whole lot to my people now. I think I can go and sleep well because I've left the matter in everybody's hands.
So
we are not so to Iyase now.
About Agbato Yase.
Well, I will say, oh, I will say.
Agbato Waya. Anyway, Wagagmo Apagbe na Nyobonu Mogun Oyedowi.
No, not yet. For the press.
Ọba àtọ́pẹ́ Ẹgbàtú yọba nípò ọwà tó tà.
When the press yà dé dáwọ̀ ẹ̀ when the Harry Kenya ní yé ni.
Gentlemen of the press. Ẹgbàtú yọba nípò ọba àtọ́pẹ́. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Iyase have been mandated to read the statement from His Royal Majesty. This Ọba àtọ́pẹ́ yìí.
This is a statement at the meeting of His Royal Majesty Omonobanedu Ewuare II, Oba of Benin, with palace chiefs and Enigie on the repatriation of the looted Benin artifacts. In the name of God and our ancestors, I welcome you all and thank you all for honoring the invitation. I have called this meeting today to intimate you of the matter of the Benin artifacts in Europe at the verge of being repatriated, which I am sure you have heard and read about in recent weeks. You may also have heard about the recent activities of a group of individuals who incorporated a company since January 2020 called Legacy Restoration Trust Limited. It has become germane to note that the advocacy and demands for the return of the artifacts looted from the Benin Kingdom in 1897 have been going on for decades before the emergence of the incumbent governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki. I must sincerely thank the governor for joining the struggle and showing commitment to retrieve our stolen cultural heritage from Europe. While anticipating the return of the looted artifacts from Europe, I want to note that attempts to divert the destination of the right of custody of the artifacts is not in the interest of the Benin Kingdom, to whom the palace of the Oba of Benin provides leadership. The looted artifacts awaiting repatriation from Europe are the cultural heritage of the Benin Kingdom, created by our ancestors and forefathers within the traditional norms and rights of the kingdom. They are not property of the state government or any private corporation entity that is not a creation of the Benin Kingdom. The right and only legitimate destination of the artifacts to be repatriated, as already pronounced by my father, is under the aegis of the Benin Royal Museum that will be sited within the precincts of the palace of the Oba of Benin, from where they were stolen. And also the property and also the proper traditional institution that is also the custodian of all cultural heritage of the Benin Kingdom. The palace, therefore, strongly advises that anyone, group, organization, or the government, national and international, that is dealing with any organization or artificial group in the process of returning the looted artifacts from Benin will be doing so at their own risk, against the will of the people of Benin Kingdom. There is no alternative native authority or custodian of the cultural heritage of Benin Kingdom outside the Oba of Benin, as constituted by the Royal Palace. I do not believe that the motive by a privately registered company, the Legacy Restoration Trust Limited, and the purported establishment of a Edo Museum of West African Arts, MOA, are in consonance with the wishes of the people of Benin Kingdom. It is pertinent to note that shortly after my accession to the throne, I had several discussions with the governor on the plan of the Benin Royal Museum, and he expressed his readiness to work with the palace to actualize this laudable wish of my father. I made efforts and acquired additional plots of land from different families within the Adesogbe area near the present-day palace for this purpose. I was, however, surprised to read from the governor's letter to the palace where reference was made to the fact that a new museum to be known as MOA is now being proposed, which will be funded and executed through the vehicle of another body now referred to as Legacy Restoration Trust. When Governor Godwin Obaseki informed me in the correspondence of another implementation framework using the so-called Legacy Restoration Trust and the Edo Museum of West African Arts, MOA, my response was that the setting up of another organization or legal entity in whatever form or guise will not be necessary nor acceptable. I informed him that Obaewa, the second foundation, has been registered with the CAC and has worked out a framework for not only receiving the artifacts, but also building a modern structure, the Benin Royal Museum, within the precincts of the palace. And that land has been secured for the building of the Benin Royal Museum under the supervision of the traditional institution. But for reasons best known to him, the governor has gone against the understanding given recent events. As a matter of fact, the people of Benin Kingdom and other stakeholders, especially the Benin Dialogue Group, has at different meetings endorsed the Benin Royal Museum to be built within the palace, as well as endorsing the Obaewa the second foundation for fundraising and other requisite administrative processes. We wish to use this museum. We wish to use this medium to call on the federal government to take custody of these artifacts on behalf of the palace until the Benin Royal Museum is ready for their collection. Under no circumstances should custody of our age-old artifacts be handed to any privately contrived entity like the Legacy Restoration Trust. Thankfully, just yesterday, I spoke with the Honorable Minister for Information and Culture, who presently in Germany, over the negotiation with the German government over the plans for the repatriation of our artifacts. He assured me that the federal government remain committed to get the unconditional return of our artifacts and will guarantee its full custody for their onward transmission to Benin Kingdom, to the exclusion of any unauthorized private entities or third parties. We once again thank the federal government for this commitment. It now behoves the federal government to be the only level of government that can take custody of the artifacts with a view to transferring them to their original owner and their original place of abode. More so that there exists external treaties and laws guiding these processes. The Palace of the Oba of Benin wishes to advise His Excellency Mr. Godwin Obaseki, Governor of Edo State, to review his approach of using private vehicle of Legacy Trust Limited and the Edo Museum of West African Art, EMOWA, and to see how he can genuinely collaborate with the Oba Palace in accordance with our original understanding. We thank the German government for their interest and willingness to return the Benin artifacts. We pray to God and our ancestors for a fruitful resolution of this issue. Thank you.
Ọba Tọ́pẹ́. Ọba Tọ́pẹ́. Ọba Tọ́pẹ́. Agbato yase. Agbato niwa. Agbato yoba. Awo kawe nigi. Awigo heya fe na ginati. Awo kage leya. Agbato waya. No iso egbe baba na ni ha. Ara. No nya. Ọba egbe na. Ogun re baba na. Awe ma wana na wa una. Okina na wa dona. Owe wa be ge be kini e wodoni. Ona izo ajegwa we da paseyo enable a one-on-one interview with the Oba of Benin, which is very rare. And that paseyo ne babana. So, I had a phone senior ne Arise TV, another crew, members of the crew and Rwanda, of media houses here, now may now get one-on-one interview with the Oba of the Great Benin Kingdom. Ike Kiwani with no heke. Oba Tọ́pẹ́. Yes, please let's proceed.
A truly historic moment we are witnessing here. Rotus Ikene, we've been listening to the EAC of Benin, who's the traditional prime minister, communicates what the Oba has been talking about in the last 1 hour plus in the Benin language, basically saying that reparation of the looted Benin artifacts should return to the palace. Where it belongs.
Yes, indeed. And it's notable that this 91-year-old traditional prime minister was not able to prostrate before the Oba because of his age. But some of the things that struck me from what he said was...
How old is he? You should let everyone know how old he is.
91-year-old. Yes, if you want me for emphasis.
Articulate and, you know...
Yes, very sound of
cleared the message
mind.
very well, yeah.
But what stood out for me from what he was saying was that there seemed to have been a pre-existing agreement between the Oba and Governor Obaseki at the onset. Indeed, he welcomed the governor's interest in supporting what he said was an existing desire of his to retrieve the artifacts, and went ahead to make arrangements so that when the artifacts were recovered, he bought extra plots of land or added extra plots of land for the purpose of having that museum set up. So he, as far as that discourses or what was said is concerned, he was fully anticipating that the artifacts would be returned to him, and it came as a surprise to him to learn of these new arrangements of a trust having been set up and a different museum being established as well.
Right, and again, I do encourage all our viewers to read that front page article in This Day newspaper. It's really in depth, and they mentioned the company. They mentioned it, British Legacy Restoration Trust, and they made it clear that and in fact, in specific words, he said anyone who's doing any dealings with Legacy or any other company purporting to be working on behalf of getting those artifacts back, you're doing it at your own risk. They have to come back to the palace and go nowhere else. So that statement. He couldn't have been any more clear, the Oba, with respect to that.
Indeed. He says this is the cultural heritage of the Benin people. They're not property of the state government. Those are the words of the Oba there, read out loudly by the Iyase of Benin, again, the traditional prime minister. They are not the property of the state government or any private entity. This, he saes it clearly. There were plans, like you had mentioned, and these plans even date back to his father's reign. There were plans to set up a museum in the palace. Talking about Oba Erejawa II, who has joined his ancestors. And he wonders why, after that conversation, notifying the incumbent governor, to say, we would like to have the palace have a museum. It's called, if I can get the name, the Benin Royal Museum is what it should be called. He's surprised that the governor went ahead to float a private entity.
Yes, indeed. And he says the Legacy Restoration Trust Limited and the activities of the Legacy Restoration Trust Limited are not in consonance with the legacy of Benin Kingdom.
The wishes of the Benin people.
Yeah.
Let's return now. We're having the very rare, historic one-on-one interview with Rise News and the Oba of Benin.
And that's Christian Ogodo.
Have the honor and privilege of having a one-on-one interview with His Majesty. Your Majesty.
Well, this is no longer one-on-one with everybody here now.
That's what your secretary chose, Your Majesty.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Your Majesty, I will start first with this brewing controversy. In your speech, you said, having spoken to your chiefs, to members of your kingdom, you feel very relieved. Do you think this issue about the repatriation of the artifacts from some European countries like Germany, France, and others will be domiciled in the museum that you have proposed, even before you ascending the throne, Your Majesty?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say that there is no controversy about this matter. It's a straightforward subject matter. As I said I want to correct that impression that there's controversy between the palace and the state government or our state governor. Like I said, I asked my chiefs to be very prayerful. I asked the chiefs, are we okay? There's no controversy. I don't see anything as controversial in this matter. It's a straightforward subject matter. We made that very clear. Perhaps there's a breach in communication. There's communication gap. There's a little bit of misunderstanding, not on our side, but on the side of the state government or on the side of Mr. Governor Obaseki, His Excellency the Governor, which I said we should pray for. That's why I repeated and insisted that we all of us need prayers for a peaceful resolution of this misunderstanding, because we had that understanding from the very beginning that it shall be Benin Royal Museum as recommended, in fact, pronounced by my father, not even by me, by my father, and I following the footsteps of my father. So there's no controversy at all. And the other question you asked about the international community, we have said our piece. We have made it clear to them. It's a straightforward matter. The Benin people have spoken, the chiefs have spoken, the royal family, they have all spoken. The youths have spoken. There's no controversy. If they say, there's that part. I'm not a Pentecostal Christian, but there's that part of the Bible. Let those that have ears hear. We have said that let them hear. And we have made our position clear. I'm following my father's footsteps, following my ancestors' footsteps. It is not just only my call. It's not only my statement. It's a statement of the entire Benin people. It's a statement of the entire Benin people. You cannot expect the artifacts to go elsewhere other than where it was taken from. It's just a given. So I think the international community will be wise. Last year when I intervened in that political problem they were having, 2020 and all that, we thank God there was peace. Peace reigned and there was no bullet fired. And the next day or 2 days after, there was a publication in the Vanguard and the Nation, I think. Each one of them, I was surprised, they dubbed me the King of Peace. So we are peaceful people. We don't need to say it ourselves. People have recognized that we like peace. We don't like controversy. We like peaceful resolution. Without peace, there's no development. Without peace, you cannot enjoy yourself. You cannot enjoy yourself when there's quarrel. You need to party traditional manner. You need to have groups come and entertain people, drink, merry. We are not happy that first of all I tackled the issue of human trafficking before me. I had to come out and speak. Then the next was, let me say first of all, the CDA issue, and then the human trafficking issue. Everybody came running to me. The end NAPTIP DG, I made a representation and appeal to me to please speak so that I can control those native doctors that they talked about. I said, okay, I will. And I came out because they were rubbishing the image of Benin. And I can't stand here and let them rubbish the image of my people. So we had to do something about it like that has never been done. Even the chiefs were surprised what I did. That they never knew that we have such traditional devices that could command. I told them all the native doctors here are under our control. Those that don't want to be under our control will go to hell. They'll go to hellfire, hellhole as the Pentecostal Christians will. So we advise them to stay away from holding these people to ransom, these girls to ransom, and making them swear oaths, take oaths, and let them so that they can feel free to speak to NAPTIP and anti-human trafficking agencies and all that. So the same thing. What I'm saying here is peace. Pray for the governor. Perhaps there are some unscrupulous people. They say money is the root of all evil. The information I'm getting is a lot. I don't want to say it all here. Information I'm getting is a lot, but bottom line of it is that there seems to be monetary attraction, financial attraction inside of all these schemes, financial attraction. And everybody can still gain if you go the right way. God will bless you. If you go the right way, God will bless you. Go the demonic way, the Satan way, to be greedy and do the wrong things. God will judge the person.
Your
So that's what yes.
Thanks very much for that elaborate answer there. There is another issue, whether you see it as funny or controversial again, it's another point. Because you talked about financial inducements, attractions, with these artifacts being returned, a company has been registered called Legacy Restoration Trust. And you have another one, Legal Restoration Trust. Aren't you worried about this? Or are these the kinds of financial inducements that you think is driving the repatriation of these artifacts instead of coming to the palace, then the body wants to hijack it? How worried are you about that?
Well, I thank you for that question, but I think the question answers itself already. I don't know anything about legacy trust, restoration trust. Is not. We are not part of it. We don't know much. We don't know what is going on. We don't know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. But our concern and our focus is that the artifacts were taken from the palace many years ago, over 100 years ago. And they cannot, you have heard the people that represent a larger group of the entire kingdom. That's what you see here. That's what you see here. The whole palace out there can be filled up with much more. But you heard the people where the things were taken from must come back to the same place. I don't know. I can't really comment on the financial motive of legacy trust or restoration trust or something. I don't even remember the names properly. I don't know what their financial plan is about. You cannot have financial plan about our artifacts. That's not possible. So those that want to look at it like that, they are being misled. That's why I said we should pray. We should pray for them.
Yes, Your Royal Majesty, in praying for them, is the issue again, your emphasis anyway is that, look, these artifacts were stolen, plundered from the palace here, so therefore they must be returned here. And you said even your forebear had earmarked a land for it. What do you say about the proposed Edo West African
again, we are not. Again, it's strange. That is also, as I already said it in the statement. That is already strange. That is also strange to us. That's not what I discussed with Mr. Governor right from the beginning. What I discussed with him was Benin Royal Museum. He knows that if he steps in here, if we are here together now, I will remind him. That we are going to Aderio. Meaning, what did we discuss that time? Was it a MOA? Was it a legacy? No, you cannot say that we discussed that with me. So everything that you are asking now is contained in the statement the ESA read. So as I said, we don't know a MOA. We cannot work with a MOA with Benin Royal Museum. What am I say?
Your Royal Majesty, this is a very rare opportunity. So
I usually don't give interviews, even usually, but for the prince, it's very close to me. So go ahead.
Just a final one. As a king of peace, as you've now come to be known, far and wide, there is a big national issue that troubles the whole country. The issue of insecurity, yes. The issue of restructuring, every group here and there say it's like taking us to the period when we had the Midwest movement
Yes.
under your able ancestor Oba Kenzua and other notable Edo now Delta people. What are your thoughts about the call for restructuring? What were your thoughts? How would you advise government about the issues of insecurity, kidnapping, banditry that pervades the entire country?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is outside of the what you have in the last one. You know, thank you very much for the question. But see, we were trained when it comes to matter of security. When it comes to matter of security, we are actually trained. When it comes to the matter of security, we are trained not to comment in public on matter of security. You know that. So whatever advice, observations I will communicate it directly to the federal government of Nigeria. It is not that we are not concerned. We are very going on. Then, as for the causes of insecurity and the call for restructuring, let me just make an observation that in the entire country, we have several traditional institutions that the came to meet. The major ones, of course, as everybody knows, is Benin Empire, the Oyo Empire Ife, the Hausa Fulani, and so on and so forth. But when the colonial people came, did all the dastardly act they did to the country, because they have taken a decision in Germany, the same Germany we are talking about, to share Africa. They did it at will, without recourse, without even recognition of the cultural base of the people they were meeting. Unfortunately for them, on getting to this part of Africa, they found strong traditional bases, traditional institutions. When they left after the independence, they handed over their style of administration to our people. Now, our people became the then governors, or so and so forth, and then until it transformed to presidential system, from parliamentary to presidential system, which we have now. However, where I think the problem came about is when those that took over from the colonial people and were now practicing their style of administration, when they begin to forget their base, when they begin to forget where they are coming from, where they will also go back to after 4 years or 8 years, as the case may be, then you have these issues. You have a schism between the people themselves. It becomes a difficult task to reconcile, and therefore restructuring, the call for restructuring and so on and so forth, will begin to come up. It never came up at that time. So that's a brief answer to it. It's deeper than that, but I can, in the situation we are in now, we need to. If we can adjust that, when you have traditional chiefs that are members of the House of Rep or members of the Senate, they are chiefs. They belong to the old colonial system or presidential system practice now, and they are also members of the traditional system. So they have to reconcile it. We have to this constitutional review. They have to really look at it very well, not to shy away from it. Look at it very well and come up with a constitution that really will reflect all of us, the unity of Nigeria, that will be able to unite Nigeria. That's what I think. I hope you are okay with that.
Well, we all know what the front pages will be tomorrow. They will be curbing them from this interview, this live exclusive on Arise News, exclusive interview by Arise there with the Oba of Benin.
I want to thank all the members of the press.
I think the Oba is still speaking. Let's go back in.
Wish you all well. Na-aga yiri na ya liru na ya okarioba na ya okarioba vai ni a zio no mada gwa ni a zio no mada be dagbe ya ni a no mada do ne ya make na fure o fure a mi re do na ka na yo ayo o fu wa ya gbe ni wa ya o fu wa ya gbe o Baba Tope.
Just giving a special vote of thanks there, the Oba of Benin, Oba Ewuare II, several hours, more than 2 hours live here, exclusive on Rise News. Again, just to reiterate what the Oba had said, he says there's no controversy, although he says there's a lot of information, but he's not going to spill them here, surrounding monies and the financial attraction to this artifact. He says there's a breach, there might be a breach in communication on the part of the governor. He says it's a straightforward matter, there's no controversy. The artifacts should return to where they belong. Simple.
Yes, indeed, Adesua, and he was at pains to reiterate that if the governor were present, he would remind him about what they discussed then, meaning that if there has been a departure from their earlier agreement, it hasn't been by him. But what struck me, my takeaway from the Arise exclusive, was the point he made at the latter part, although reluctantly, because he says he has been trained not to stray into issues of political affairs. But it was striking that he said he feels the schism between our governance as it exists today has come about because you've had a neglect of referencing the traditional rulers, and even began to suggest that if you had such representation in the House, in the National Assembly, that we would do well to have that reconstituted. And while we're looking at the Constitution, we should harken back to some of these things, that we shouldn't forget where we've come from, that a lot of people in power have forgotten that they will go back to where they came from. So very, very profound observations made by the Oba.
And something on Constitution review?
Yes.
It says that's something we need to have.
Yes, indeed.
It's important to have that.
Yes.
Brutus?
I'm waiting to hear from the governor. He has a lot to answer for at this point to clear up this misconception and misunderstanding on his part. So this story continues. Well, how far as the palace and the Oba is concerned is straightforward. Just return the artifacts to where they were taken. Very curious to hear from the governor. A great interview there with Christian Obodo.
But just to add that the Oba doesn't sound combative at all. Indeed, he says we should pray for the governor. So
He's an Oba of peace.
Yes, indeed. Indeed,
He's
and
an
that's
Oba of peace.
commendable.
Yeah.
Well, he says he is the Oba of Peace, and even going ahead to tell us why and how he's become the Oba of Peace. His previous intervention in bringing peace to the land, he talked about the intervention in politics ahead of the Edo 2020 elections, and of course his intervention in curtailing to a great extent the trafficking of young girls who from Edo State who are sworn under oath by force, by those who traffic them. And he says he had to speak, and we all recall that story. The Oba says, I will lay a curse. The Oba of Benin hardly curses, but he's seen as one who makes supplications to the ancestors, and things happen. But at that point he came and said, I would lay a curse on you if you do keep trafficking our young women, under different guises to other countries, subjecting them to inhumane practices.
Yes, I mean, what comes across is that he's a very disciplined individual, and that he takes his role as custodian of the Edo culture very seriously indeed. So it's been a lesson for a lot of us watching, because we didn't have this particular unique insight into the workings of the Oba's palace.
The Benin Royal Museum, or nothing, to house the artifacts on the verge of reparations back to the country. At the moment, we do know there's a delegation to Germany, including the Governor Godwin Obaseki, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed. So we wait to see. It's definitely not a story ending here. And like I said, we do know what the headlines are going to be tomorrow. It's going to be calling it from this extensive special coverage from the Oba's palace, the Oba of Benin, Ewuare II.
I would have loved to ask him if he's maintaining that he will site the museum on his premises, whether he will give open access to the public to be able to go and see those artifacts freely. Is he planning to change that? Because you pointed out, Adesua, that the Oba's palace and the way it's sited is sacred. So is he planning to open up that access so that the public and future generations can come and learn about the significance?
The Oba's palace is not just one standing structure. It's actually a large space of large expanse of land, and there are other houses actually sited in the compound where the Oba's palace is. So he says his father had provisions for this, and he has acquired. Recall he said during his speech that he has acquired additional land from other families to ensure that this Benin Royal Museum comes to fruition. So for that plan to be in place, of course,
he has thought about public access. So everything seems to be in order. This was well thought out, and a very truly superior argument we've heard. Actually, it's not an argument. It's a statement. Yeah, it's a fact. It's a statement of fact. And actually,
it must return here.
Yes,
we have the capacity to have our artifacts back.
Yes, and this strategy, if I may call it that, of having a world press, hearing,
truly historic,
really does seem to checkmate the governor, because it preempts and it goes ahead and establishes the authority under which he expects those artifacts to come back to him, clearing up any misconceptions or any other, diversionary statements that could come out subsequent to this.
For those who said, ancestral feud may just be returning, the Oba has cleared that again. There's no controversy.
Yes.
It's for peace. And he says, this is not my statement. I think that was very crucial.
Okay.
He says, this is not my statement. This is the statement of the Benin people. The people have spoken. The youths have spoken. It is our artifacts. We want them back where they were taken from. And we know who is the custodian of those artifacts, the custodian of tradition and culture, the Oba himself, the Oba of Benin.
Yes, and I imagine legal practitioners listening to this statement would concur. You steal something, you return it to the person you stole it from. So it would seem that there is a degree of presumption around going and setting up a trust without involving or getting the blessing of the Oba in the first place. And we wait to hear what more can be said beyond what has been said today.
Oh, wait for next week. We should hear more about this in the new week. The story definitely continues. Again, and he stated he doesn't talk to the media. doesn't talk to the media.
A departure
and,
from his
yeah, and really glad that Arise News got the exclusive there and got to hear from him. So, oh yeah, do stay tuned. This is a very, very interesting developing story here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not forget that he also thanked the governor for joining the struggle to retrieve the stolen artifacts. That was also important to note. He says, we thank you. However, there's this private entity we're hearing about. We do not know what this is, but let us tell you that we are not going to associate with this. We don't know it. It doesn't exist because the artifacts should return to where they belong.
I mean, very in keeping with his alias, if you like, the Oba of Peace, to establish that they started off on the right footing. They started off from a point of agreement, after which there seemed to have been a departure. And it's almost it's a message to outside entities, to those who are dealing with the governor, to say you have no legal basis to deal with him because he doesn't have ownership of the artifacts.
And there are a lot of reasons why the Benin Kingdom is so rich in history and culture, is so revered, why the Oba remains one of the most revered monarchs you can find. It's because of things like this, that traditionally heritage, culture matters. No matter how we evolutionize, no matter how the world becomes global, there are some things you should never lose sight of. There's some things you should never lose. And that's tradition, that's culture, that's history. And this is what these artifacts represent. Like I said, they are fragments of history, fragments of culture that were forcibly taken, forcefully taken. And now if they are to be returned, it only makes sense, common sense perhaps, that they should return to where they were
taken from. And I don't think, judging from the outlook of the Oba, he seems to be very broad-minded, that he appreciates that this is a teachable moment in time, and he's making use of this opportunity. Hence, the reason he opened up his palace to the press, to instruct people who may not be conversant with the connection the Oba has with the culture, as being a custodian of culture, to instruct those watching that this is the significance of these artifacts, and this is why it needs to proceed in this manner.
O Kagele, Eguatuaya. Oba. Awe na gi wine awe. Zebina na kawe nemo wa jegwa. Egano ma pegbe. Ana tamo awe. Awu sumi mama noroto. Na akabo ya awu wase. Na akabo ya kinu wa. Opa ona we na go nu wa we gwa. Awe na wa le wana gi wine awe. E ma wani ya fe yeroto.
Well, at some point in the conversation we've been listening to today, that statement, the Oba of Benin's statement read out by the Iyase of Benin, the Prime Minister, the traditional Prime Minister, he did mention that the federal government, the only condition perhaps would be if the federal government comes in with a view to transpelling to original owners, because it says there are external treaties and laws guiding the process. And so that's the only time we have the federal government mentioned in all of this. Otherwise, he says it's not the property of the state government, it's not the property of any private entity, not formed by the Benin Kingdom.
Indeed, and that struck me as well, that he left the door open with that statement for a mediator to step in between the two, rather than seeming to close the door on any alternative. So he's saying that in the absence of the artifacts being returned directly to him, the only other person who could intervene and mediate on behalf of this matter would be the federal government.
Yeah, and the Oba's chiefs, they are now praising the Oba for his wisdom, his leadership. And yes, of course, he's still having some more words with his subjects. But yes, the subjects praising, singing, celebrating their king, praising him for his wisdom and his leadership. Because it has to be said, he has been a model of leadership in this particular matter. Very straight to the point. Just bring back the artifacts. We had an agreement, straightforward, and let's move on. So all in order so far today.
I have to say, Rutus, I'm more inspired, if you like, by the possibility of trying to bring about a restoration of our former cultures. The fact that I feel so much has been lost by assuming that the two have no meeting point. But listening to the Oba and listening to, he is a communicator. He's managed to bring about arguments that would persuade even people who had no knowledge of what we're dealing with here to say, look, this is where this started and this is where it should be heading. I would love to pick his brains on what he sees as the future of our culture in the light of these artifacts being returned, what he sees as what can be handed over to the next generation to give them a way forward.
The Oba doesn't join issues publicly to tell you how significant this is to him and how important it is for the Benin Kingdom. And as the custodian of the culture and tradition of the Benin people, this is important to him. Quick facts. So he's the Omonoba Nedo Ukwapolopolo. I know you can have been wondering what is Ukwapolopolo.
It's a very solid name.
Very solid. It translates, loosely to the big embodiment. Okay. He's seen as the elephant that cannot be lifted. Okay. The Benin people see their king, the Oba of Benin, as the mirror which they see themselves. So when the Oba speaks, he truly speaks for his people.
I mean, that's role modeling, if ever you saw it. And to sometimes the way we easily dismiss our past, this is the very thing that other nations seek after. Even after they have established governments, they still hold on to their monarchies because you're looking for a role model, someone who will embody that perfection that you want to look up to, in spite of the fact that you know that people make mistakes. But here is somebody that will remind you of what you can aspire towards.
It's a rare moment everyone can enjoy.
It's Enige. Wadotu mogu wamenari unajuwayi. is is yes, Ogudu. Is Ọba Àtọ́pẹ́ Lọ́kì Maswe Lótú Baba. See ya so Udo Udo Yedina with Lótú Baba. Is Ibioba Lótú Baba Ami Nasogbe Egwatuwa.
So the chiefs are paying homage, and more of his people are still, his subjects are still paying homage, and they're chanting Oboton Paye, which means long live the king. Please educate me. Obaite. And Isha means amen.
Yes. Oba Atokpe. Oba Atokpe. May the king live long. Amen.
Amen. Obaton Paye.
You've been watching a special coverage here on the Raj News, straight directly from the palace of the Oba of Benin, Oba Ewuare II, who's been speaking on the looted artifacts to be returned to the country. Summary: there's no controversy between the palace and the governor or the state government. He says that the artifacts should be returned to the palace where they do belong.
Indeed, Adesua, it's been a very enlightening coverage from here, including an Arise exclusive with the Oba himself.